You can't separate church and state. You can't separate church and state. Some of you watch the news like I watch the news. And if you have watched the news closely, you know of two uprisings that have happened in our world. However, the one that has been more pronounced over the last 2 weeks is over in a northern African country known as Egypt. You see, sometimes we have a tendency to forget that the country of Egypt is on the African continent. So there are African brothers and sisters who have made up their mind that they are tired of the regime that has been in place for the last 30 years. For the last 30 years, Egyptians have been subject to ungodly low wages. They have been subject to a military state where the military literally has an investment in almost half of the country's main resources. It makes money hand over fist, and those that are a part of the current governmental system come straight out of the military and benefit from the misery of the people. Now, my shock is not about the uprising. My shock is about us here in the United States who look at this uprising as if we never had uprising here. Here's the Black History moment of the day. It hasn't been but a few years ago that people, black, white, Jewish, all that meant well, decided to rise up against systems that kept people impoverished and subject to being almost enslaved all over again. Some of you were the ones that couldn't sit at the lunch counters, could not go to the bathrooms that were decent for any human being, could not sit where you wanted to on a bus, gain equal pay for equal work from your counterparts. And yet somehow we have become so desensitized that we look at Egypt as being something almost insane. The truth of the matter is that the Egyptians over there, whether they be of the Muslim faith or the Coptic Christian brothers and sisters that have decided to be unified about human rights and basic civil rights that they want in their country, all they are doing is gaining an idea or a mentality that they have an expectation of their government to do the right thing. Y'all getting nervous, aren't you? This is going to be taped and it's going to be on YouTube. I already prayed about it. I have no fear. Some of us in here have become so desensitized to what is right and wrong that we will accept anything. Let me explain it this way. The concept of the state is usually understood as government authority. But for your spiritual edification today, the state represents anything that governs your life. and dictates how you live within this world. So if we're going to take that meaning today, I dare say that some of us in here are dictated by the wrong stuff. Because, and how do I know this? Because of the way that we approach certain aspects of our lives. There's a reason why some of us casually show up to church. Because of what really dictates our lives. We say we love God. We say that we honor His presence. We say we are blessed by Him. But why does it look like our lives are dictated by everything else but Him? Show up to church when you want. However you want. And say to God every single day, one day I'll get back when I clean myself up. And God is telling you the entire time, you can't do for you what I can. So why don't you hook up with me and let me fix it? I'm not talking about folk that just are totally dismissed from God. I'm talking about those of us that claim. This is not complaining. This is let's deal with this. Paul was talking about a government given authority by God that executed God's will. That's what I want you to understand. He wasn't talking about a government that was dictated by its own devices, that was in it for itself. He's saying you must honor authority that follows under the authority of God. Yeah. So if that is the principle, then if we say we love God, and we say with our lips that God governs our existence, then why do anything at all that does not look like Him? I'm not saying you won't make mistakes. I'm not saying you won't fall short, because it says all that sin and fallen short of the glory of God. But Paul also writes, shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. So there comes a point when you need to quit holding on to grace and doing something different. Some of y'all in here struggling right now. Coming up with the excuses. I'm not going back to that church. Who cares if you don't go back to that church? You called yourself a child of God. Which means that the church is not a location, but it's the living organisms that are in it. And if you are the church, you must connect with others that are the church. There are no excuses. And some of y'all in here are getting madder by the moment. I don't care. You need to hear it. If you don't have a church home where you're growing and developing, I don't care if it's here. It can be anywhere where the word of God is being preached or taught. And you claim to follow Jesus Christ, then you have a responsibility to quit talking and show it.